So I've been here in Cebu for a few days and I wanted to share some of my thoughts about it. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect from this place because I went here once when I was a kid, actually. I think I was like 12 years old at the time. Cebu has a really interesting vibe and my feeling about the place changes every single day. Because I remember when I first arrived, I was living in like the middle of the barrio in one of the hostels there. And when I was there, I just felt like I was in the province. It was very chaotic. There was traffic everywhere. There was a lot of air pollution. There was a lot of noise. When I was there, I didn't feel like I liked it too much. But then I came here to IT Park and I feel like IT Park was almost like a mini BGC in a lot of ways. Because Cebu is a smaller city, there's not as much pollution here compared to Manila. And from my understanding, the people here are a lot nicer. I was talking to a guy who was from here, Cebu, and he was telling me that the people here don't care about class and career as much as the people in Manila do. You know, I haven't met too many locals, so I don't know if that's true or not. I definitely feel the classism in a place like Manila. Like in Manila, social class, how much money you have, your family name, those are all very important. And here, Cebu feels a lot more chill. The thing that I noticed right away, and I think a lot of you guys are gonna notice this, the women here in Cebu are beautiful. When I was in Manila, I didn't think the women were that attractive, but here in Cebu, they are stunning. It is like a mix of Asian, Latin, and Black, and just like the best combination of those three all over the place. So I can understand why a lot of guys want to come to Cebu for the women, but that is where the main issue lies. Cebu reminds me of what I imagine Medellin was like 40 years ago, before all of the development and all the gringos came and gentrified everything. You're gonna notice in Cebu, it's like old white guy central. You're gonna notice everywhere here. You're gonna see the older white dude with a Filipino girl. Sometimes she's around his age, but most of the time she's like much younger. I wouldn't say people necessarily come here for sexual tourism. A lot of people are coming here for relationships and the like. As beautiful as the women are here, the only downside that I see is that if you want to date somebody here, it's almost required for you to stay here. Because the women here are a little more low-key, I guess more family oriented. Because the Filipino passport is so weak as well, I can't imagine like coming here from a European or a Western country, dating somebody and taking them back to your home country. Cebu is nice in certain areas, but much like much of the Philippines, you're gonna see a lot of infrastructure problems. In this area specifically, it's nice, but the rest of the city is very dirty. There's a lot of traffic. It's very noisy. That's the biggest issue of the Philippines, is that the infrastructure is not well maintained. Because the culture here, and you can ask any Filipino and they'll tell you the same thing, is that Filipinos like to take shortcuts in everything that they do. Plus, the government is very corrupt here as well. So you have an island that has the same population as a place like Japan, but the infrastructure and the organization of everything is completely different. In Japan, you feel extremely safe. Everything is well developed. The people work together as a unit to, try to advance the society. Here in the Philippines, it's like the Filipino are their own worst enemy. A lot of people trying to cheat the system and take a bunch of shortcuts. And this is why I've changed my opinion on all these white guys coming down here looking for women. Because it's not necessarily the white guys' fault or them exploiting the women here. Because at the end of the day, both parties are getting what they want. The white guy is getting a young, beautiful wife. The women here are looking for marriage and for family and for that long-term stability, so they're getting that as well. So I think who's to blame more so is actually the Filipino government and culture, which allows so much poverty and income inequality to happen in this country that forces a lot of people in these poor areas to look towards like dating foreigners as an option to get out of poverty. Because I see a lot of these women, and once they date or they're with an older foreigner who's retired or whatever, they bring their whole entire family out of poverty. The parents, the grandparents, maybe existing kids that they have, so it makes sense from a survival standpoint why these women would want to do that. There are some key differences between here and a place like Colombia though. Women here are generally more conservative and not as promiscuous as the women in Colombia. And that's because a lot of the women here are actually looking for something long-term, stable, for marriage, all those things. And I think a lot of especially the girls from the province, you still have to court them, or you have to go to the dad, ask for their permission and everything. Maybe here in Cebu, because it's more of a city, there's less of that. But in general, the women here are definitely looking more for relationship and marriage than just hooking up with foreigners. Also, I want to point out that the marriage laws here are extremely strict. Here in the Philippines, it's almost impossible to get a divorce. If you get married, you can have the marriage annulled, but it's a really, really long process. And here in the Philippines in general, there's just a bunch of really weird laws around marriage and a bunch of stuff. For example, it's actually legal for a woman here to kill her husband if the husband is unfaithful. There's also a law regarding like if you give gifts to people who are minors, like even if it's not in a sexual manner, it could be considered as grooming. Let's say you're a guy, right? And then you want to give a gift to some boys in the neighborhood, like a basketball or something. If it's taken the wrong way or they talk to a lawyer or something like that, it could be misconstrued and you can be on the hook for grooming. I'm not entirely sure how strict that law is, but it's a law here, so it's something to watch out for as well. I know a lot of guys, not so much here, but more so in Manila, where they come to the Philippines and within 2 to 3 months, they're already booed up with a kid. They're trying to sort that whole entire thing out and they get married like within a year because usually there's like a kid on the way and everything. So I would be really, really careful because a lot of men fall into that trap as well. Also, something that I found very interesting, and my buddy told me this, that it's more societally acceptable for a woman to be dating a older retired man because those guys are more inclined to want to retire and stay here. Whereas the younger guys who are in their 20s or 30s who are a little more attractive, even though they are more closer in age, these guys, and I guess I'm included in that demographic, are not here for a long time, so they're just kind of passing through. So I've seen a few younger guys dating Filipino women, but here in Cebu, for the most part, it's all these old retirees with their young, beautiful Filipino wife. That just seems to be the culture here. So one of my worries for Cebu is that it's eventually going to turn into a place like Medellin once the word starts getting out, probably within the next 10 years or so. But it's hard to say because trying to get anything done here in the Philippines is just a pain in the ass. But I think that once Cebu gets a little more developed, you're going to start to see the shift in the kind of people that are coming here. And this is probably the biggest reason why I can't see myself living here in Cebu. I see where this is going, and maybe it will change, maybe it will not. Based off my experience in Medellin, I just already see the gentrification and all that stuff happening, and I'm just not a big fan of that. On top of that, I'm just not a big fan of the food here in the Philippines. The cool thing about here in IT Park is that there's a lot of restaurants that are open until late, and for me, that's really awesome because I am more of a night owl. But the nutrition here is really lacking, man. I made a comment on one of my previous videos that the obesity here feels like obesity from the States. And the reason for that is that a lot of Filipino food is fried, it's fatty, there's a lot of oil and sugar. But on top of that, it feels like you have to eat a lot of calories and food just to get the same amount of nutrients that you would get in other countries. It's very calorie dense, but there's not a lot of nutrients. I'm sorry, brother. And that comes from food being processed, a lot of the food here being imported. And everywhere you go, you're gonna see just like unlimited Korean barbecue, unlimited rice, unlimited everything, right? So the people here love to eat. I'm not here completely as a tourist. Because I have family here, I know the history, I know kind of the good and the bad of the Philippines. It makes me have a different opinion than most of the people who come here. I've heard a lot of the older expats talk, and they are extremely happy to be here in the Philippines. They're treated nicely, the people are nice, everything here is cheap, and they can get the family that they've always wanted. So, you know, I totally understand it from that point of view. And I think for that, like the older expats, this place is probably a really good place to retire. But for somebody who's young, it's very hard for me to recommend Cebu as a place to stay. Unless you get to know local people and, you know, you get accepted by the local community. It's a shame because as a Chinese Filipino, it would make the most sense for me to come back here to, I mean, maybe not Manila because it's a big city, but come to a place like Cebu because I could get a passport here. I can easily make the transition to living here. But because of the infrastructure problems, a lot of the air pollution, things getting done here, not running as efficiently as a lot of countries in the West, it's very hard for me to recommend to other people living here in Cebu. And I wouldn't even argue that most of the people that are living here in Cebu are male expats. More likely than not, it's because of a woman, just like in Colombia. I know it seems that I'm talking badly about Cebu, but I don't mean it in a bad way because I've actually really enjoyed my time here. I think the people have been really nice and friendly. Cebu is a lot safer compared to a place like Manila. And I could probably see myself living here for maybe a month maximum, but I feel like I would get very bored spending time here. I know that there's a lot of things to do here, especially when it comes to the beach as well. A lot of people come here to learn how to dive. The last time I came when I was a kid, we did some snorkeling and we went island hopping, so that was really fun. If I were to give Cebu like a scale of 1 to 10, I think it'd probably be like a 7. It's not like the worst place in the world. It's not something super amazing. It's just kind of something right in the middle. But I'm not really traveling to be a tourist, right? When I go to a place, I try to stay there for an extended period of time so I can get to know the culture and talk with the locals and ask them about all like what life is really like here. So I guess Cebu would be cool to visit, but if you're looking to live here, this may not be the place for you. I think that there are other places. I think BGC is probably a better bet if you're looking to live here as an expat.